Good morning. This morning, we're going to try to answer the age-old question of why do bad things happen to good people? I think it's no news to anybody that bad things happen all the time. We have issues throughout the world, and it seems like every day there's something new popping up, some tragedy, some catastrophe, some new war, some new virus, some new financial downfall, some new whatever it is going on that just is heartbreaking, and it's scary. And we're left with the question of why. Why is this happening? And there are times where we can look at it and say, we know this happened because this. We know this happened because of this. We know that Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden and had to face hardships. Adam had to work for the food, and Eve went through childbearing and went through pains and her womanly issues. Why? Because of sin. A lot of times we can look at it and see that sin has entered the world. And there are times in the scriptures where you have people that pray because of the sin that has entered their nation or their kingdom, and they're asking for God's forgiveness and repentance and to take away the hardships because of those sins. But sometimes there is no explanation. Sometimes there is no answer, and we're heartbroken and we're left with why. And we question God of why is this happening? Why are these things going on? Why does this 8-year-old child die of cancer? What good comes from that? Why do you let that happen? Why does God let this stuff happen? And today we're going to try to answer that through the book of Job. Job is one of my favorite stories, and it starts out with an interesting development. God is on his throne, and Satan passes by in front of him with all the other angels. Satan was a former angel, the chief angel. He was a fallen angel. And he's marching before, and God says, hey, where you been? What are you doing? Now, pause. God knows everything. He sees everything. He is in everything. He knows good and well what's been going on. But he asks Satan, where have you been? What's going on? And Satan says, I've been on the earth causing all kinds of havoc and destruction. I've been turning your people away from you. I've been doing things to this earth and causing wars and destruction, and it's been chaos, and I love it. And your people are falling away. And God says, but have you seen Job? There's nobody more righteous than Job. And Satan's response is, well, of course there's nobody more righteous than Job, and nobody that praises your name more than him. You've blessed him. You've given him all these great things. But I guarantee if you take those things away, he'll turn away from you. So God says, do it. Just don't harm him. So Satan goes and causes havoc. And in Job chapter 1, this is what we read. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And there came a messenger to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them. And the Sabeans fell upon them and took them and struck them down, the servants, with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 groups and made a raid on the camels and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the oldest brother's house. And behold, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck down the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young people, and they are all dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. That's a bad day right there. Then Job arose and tore his robe and shaved his head and fell on the ground and worshipped. Pause. He was just told that all his kids were dead, that all his sheep were gone, all his camels were gone, all his oxen were gone, all his servants minus 4, who escaped alone to tell him, were dead. And he worshipped. Unpause. And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. One would say that God's point was proven, and it was. But it wasn't good enough for Satan, because in chapter 2 it tells us that Satan again is passing by the throne of God. And God says, where you been? And I got to imagine God says this with a little chip on his shoulder of, nice try. Satan says, I've been down on the earth casting all discord and despair and agony upon everybody, and all these great things I've done to destroy your creations and turn people away from you. And God says, but have you seen Job? Have you got the point that God is proud of Job? Have you seen Job? And Satan says, well, yeah, but you've given him great health and you've done all these great things and you allowed me to take all that away from him, and he praised your name, and that's great, but I guarantee if you allow me to harm him, he'll turn his back on you. If he's cast down and has all these issues of his health, he'll turn away. And God says, fine, do it. Just don't kill him. Now, if I'm in Job's shoes and I'm hearing this, I think I'm a little upset. Just don't kill him. This is what it says here in Job chapter 2. Verse 7 says, so Satan went from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Boils from the top of his head to the bottom of his foot. Painful. And he took a piece of broken pottery with which to scrape himself while he sat in the ashes. Then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. But he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women you would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil? In all of this, Job did not sin with his lips. So he's had everything he owns taken away. He's had anything that's precious to him stolen, dead, gone. He has nothing. And he worships. He's covered in boils from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. His wife's telling him to curse God and die. And he says, should we only accept the good and not the bad? And he praises God. Unbelievable. This dude has had the worst run of luck ever. You talk about bad days. I stub my toe and I'm crying about it for a week. This guy is living in misery. And he's praising God and saying, thank you for being you. I think God was right. He is a man of integrity. Those are the first 2 chapters of Job. And the next 37 chapters of Job, we get discussion. Chapter 37. We get discussion. You get Job talking. We get Job's 3 friends talking and giving him advice, oftentimes awful advice. And the moral of the story is, Job's come up with the idea that he has done something wrong. What have I done? Why did you allow this to happen? What is the point in all of this? You know, it's very similar to the question we ask of, why do bad things happen to good people? I think it's safe to say that Job was a good person. Bad things happened. Issues happen. Around us always, bad things happen. And Job finally has enough, and he's questioning God of, where are you? What have you done? What have I done? Where are you at in all of this? Why have you left me? Why have you forsaken? Why is my life in turmoil? Why is all this happening? Why? And God finally speaks in Job chapter 38. In Job chapter 38, verse 1, it says, and the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut the sea with the doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it, and set bars and doors, and said, Thus far shall you come, and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stayed? Have you commanded the morning since the days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it may take hold of the skirts of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It is changed like clay under the seal, and its features stand not like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and their uplifted arm is broken. Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked into the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? Declare it if you know. Where is the way of the dwelling light, and where is the place of darkness? That you may take its territory, and that you may discern the paths of its home. You know, for you were born then, and the number of your days is great. Have you entered the storehouses of snow, or have you seen the storehouses of hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war? What is the way to the place where the light is disturbed, or where the east wind scattered upon the earth? And God continues this for another 3 chapters of tell me if you know. The fact of the matter is this: God was telling Job a very simple answer. I am God. I know what's going on. I am in control. You are not God. You don't understand. Trust me. And I think Job chapter 42 gives us a great explanation in how we need to handle bad situations when trouble comes our way. Job chapter 42 verses 1 through 6 says this, after God's given Job a kind of a shut your mouth type of talk. He says, Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. I love the word thwarted. I think that needs to be brought back to the English language, a more common vernacular. And no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Hear, and I will speak. I will question you, and you make it known to me. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. God put Job in his place and said, I'm in control. Trust me. And Job realizes, you know what? God is in control. He has a purpose and a reason. And then it tells us in the last portion of the book of Job, in verse 12 of chapter 42, And the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning. And he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He had also 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he called the name of the first daughter Jemimah, and the name of the second Keziah, and the name of the third Keren-Happuch. And in all the land there were no women so beautiful as Job's daughters. And their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. And after this Job lived 140 years, and saw his sons and his sons' sons for 4 generations. And Job died an old man and full of days. And that is the story of Job. But it still begs the question, why do bad things happen to good people? And the answer is this: I don't know. I don't know. Neither do you. Neither does any expert of the law, any teacher of the law, any televangelist, any doctor in a Bible college. None of us know the answer of why bad things happen to good people. I wish I did. But I do know this: God has a purpose and a reason for everything. Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 and 6 tells us very simply, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways and he will make your path straight. Job didn't get it. He didn't understand and he questioned God, and God told him, were you there when I laid the foundations of the earth? Do you know where the snow is stored? Do you see the piles of hail that is up in the corner? Do you know when to tell the lightning to crash or the thunder to roll? Do you know how to grow a tree? Do you know how to make the sun shine? Do you know how to tell the sea this is as far as you can go and no further? No. Job had no clue how to do any of that. And neither do I. As wise as I am, I don't even know that. But I do know this. God does. And as hard as it is to accept and to deal with, sometimes things happen because God has a purpose and a reason. And sometimes you look at those reasons and say, or you look at those circumstances and say, what good can come from this? What good could possibly come out of all the issues we have going on? What possible ramification, reasoning, whatever? Why would this happen? Why would God allow this to happen? I don't know. But God has a plan. And God has a purpose. And you may say, well, that's not good enough. And if that's not good enough for you, that's fine. But I live by faith. I live by faith in knowing that I serve a God who created everything around me. And I trust that He is smart enough, He is strong enough, He is powerful enough to handle everything that's going on in the world around me and going on in my life. And I understand that I don't always have the answers, but He does. And I trust that He's got a purpose for it all, even if I don't get it. And that's a tough pill for a lot of us to swallow. But that's faith. I believe in Him. Because according to His Word, according to the evidence that He's shown me in this book and the world around me, He doesn't break His promise. And He's told us that He is always going to be there, and He will always live for us and be there for us and guide us and use us. And He will always protect us, and He'll never forsake us. Now, the other thing that I think we need to take out of Job, and I'll close with this, is perseverance. Job didn't give up. Even when his friends were telling him to give up, his wife told him to curse God and die. Satan was poking fun at him and making fun of him and saying he would fail, and he didn't, and he kept going and going and going. So we go through these times to create perseverance. James chapter 1, verse 2 through 4 says this: "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." And then down verse 12 it says, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God promised to those who He loved." And then the Apostle Paul talks about this as well. Over in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 7 through 8. Actually, I'm going to start in verse 6. It says, "For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid upon me for the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only me, but to also all who have loved His appearing." And again, the Apostle Paul in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God." Sometimes we just need to keep pushing forward, keep moving forward, and at the end of the day, at the end of this life, we have a crown of righteousness, a crown of life waiting for us. Paul talked about it time and time again, to keep running, keep pushing forward. Don't give up. Keep moving in God's direction and trust in Him. And at the end of the day, run for that crown. Sometimes all we have to have in this world to hold on to is the love of God. And that's all we need. That's the thing we miss the most. Because we don't need answers. We don't need explanations. We don't need the world to be perfect. We need to have the love of God and trust in Him and faith that He's got it all figured out. And persevere and run the race. Have a great week.